Recording also this?
Yes, I'm recording also this
Yeah.
first lecture. Okay. So Arman, anything you have heard about SAP UI5 before this? Something you know about UI5 that you can share with us?
Um, I have not heard much, but what I've like listening is that in one of my last projects, the whole portal application, like, there was a portal and everything was like seen on portal, everything like which is like whichever application you talk about, FICO or MDM or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
now they want to see everything on mobile. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, bringing these portal applications to the mobile is something to do with the architecture of Fiori and the technology of UI5. So
Mm-hmm.
this much idea I have.
Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good. So basically, I mean, UI5 comes into picture whenever you want to mobilize stuff.
Mhm.
Now we know that we have very frequently used this SAP GUI transactions or SAP ABAP portal or SAP WebDin Pro Java portal, WebDin Pro ABAP portals. But we can never imagine that a SAP GUI transaction can be made from a mobile phone or from a tablet, or SAP portal can be opened from a mobile browser. This was something which was never meant to happen 5 years back, 4 to 5 years back. But now, by the a company called as Dell has announced, I mean, has predicted that by 2017, the complete laptops and the complete desktops are going to be replaced by tablets and mobile phones, which is a very strong prediction. And as a result of this, I mean, many companies and many important websites and many important transactions that we used to do via desktop or laptops are now getting converged or now getting transferred or shifted basically to mobile phones. So the technology that SAP has come up so that the things in SAP domain can be mobilized is SAP UI5 and Fiori. Now, as you might be aware that this UI5 and Fiori are actually two parallel stuffs. So if you want to go for a standard technology or for a standard architecture or for the standard apps, which are by default provided by SAP, there are around 300 to 400 apps. If you want to go with the standard ones, the standard transactions, or with the standard applications, you can go for the Fiori, which is nothing but a standard case of SAP. But you have a scenario which is not covered by the standard applications, or which is not covered, or which is not made by the SAP as of now. So in that case, there is an emergence to develop your own applications and to develop your own custom applications, and that can be done using SAP UI5. Because even SAP Fiori, even though it is a standard stuff which is provided by SAP, uh, the technology that is used to develop SAP Fiori applications, the programming interface that is used to develop SAP Fiori applications by SAP is also SAP UI5. So even you as a developer, if you want to develop your own custom Fiori application or your own custom mobile application, you have to know SAP UI5. Or suppose there is a standard application, standard SAP UI5 standard Fiori application. If you want to customize that, or if you want to play around with certain fields or with certain buttons, or you want to add some more field into the standard Fiori applications, even then SAP UI5 knowledge is a must.
Okay.
So this is why SAP UI5, I mean, goes in parallel with SAP Fiori, and SAP UI5 is nothing but basically a programming terminology, a programming interface used to develop custom Fiori applications. Okay. So what is SAP UI5 basically? SAP UI5 is a HTML5 rendering library with a rich set of UI controls, which is used for building applications on any device, providing a lightweight programming model for desktop and mobile applications. To support one in developing applications, SAP UI5 tools comes with a set of Eclipse-based wizards and editors. So if you want to use SAP UI5 as a front-end technology to develop mobile applications, you can use the IDE as Eclipse, which is freely available. So Eclipse basically provide you wizards to create application projects and views according to the model view controller concept. And other features like JavaScript code completion, templates and snippets, and in-place application preview. So all these concepts and all these features are actually available in Eclipse, which can be used during the development of SAP UI5 mobile application or SAP UI5 desktop application. Application preview, which is a very good feature provided in Eclipse, is basically nothing but suppose you have developed an application or a testing application, and before deploying it to the production server, using this application preview feature in Eclipse, you can basically test it on a local server on a local machine and actually see the actual output before deploying it to the production server and making it visible to the end users. So as a developer, if you have made some changes into the code, you can, using application preview, you can actually at runtime see the changes before deploying it to the main servers or to your production servers. We'll see how to use the application preview and debugging tools to actually play around with the SAP UI5 snippets. Other benefits, yeah, any questions, Arman?
No.
Okay. So other benefits of SAP UI5 technology include a rich control set, including charts for all devices, an application development environment for all platforms, OData integration for timeless software, extensibility concepts for custom controls, modern theming and branding concepts, and it also embraces open source frameworks and web standards like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So basically, SAP UI5 targets developers with web development skills, including HTML, CSS3, and JavaScript. So basic knowledge of this three, HTML, CSS3, and JavaScript, can actually help you to go deep into SAP UI5 and actually play around with the SAP UI5 snippet of codes.
Okay.
So this is what is something called as SAP UI5. Apart from CSS3, JavaScript, and HTML, for advanced coding, advanced SAP UI5 programming, Ajax is also something which is used. jQuery libraries, jQuery snippets of code are also actually very much used. So when we go around and when we play around with this advanced topics in SAP UI5, probably in the 22nd or 23rd hour, we will see how jQuery comes into picture, or how Ajax comes into picture. Basically, jQuery comes into picture when you want to develop your own custom control. Consider an example that SAP UI5 libraries gives you some around 200 controls, which includes buttons, list, table, and something like that. There are 200 such controls. But now you have a requirement which is actually not provided within this library. I mean, a control which is not provided within this library. So in that case, you have to develop your own control. And SAP UI5 gives you that ability as a developer to develop your own controls, your own custom controls.
Okay. Do we use the tool NWDS also for any such development?
No.
Okay.
You only use a very simple programming IDE called as Eclipse, or SAP has their own IDE called as the SAP River RDE. Sorry, it is called as initially it was called as SAP River, now it is called as SAP Web IDE.
Okay.
But the only problem with that is it is paid. So you have to buy that. SAP do not provide us anything which is free. So you have to pay for that. So as a result, many developers, many companies go with Eclipse. It is freely available, lightweight, very much friendly to use. Many people have already used Eclipse. Even NWDS is a form of Eclipse only.
Correct.
So, I mean, Eclipse is pretty much easy to use, and it is a very standard IDE. So many people to develop SAP UI5 application prefer Eclipse. But if you want to go with the SAP standards or SAP stuff, even Web IDE can be used. The extra advantage that you can get via Web IDE is that there are some, drag and drop feature in Web IDE. For an example, if you use Eclipse, even if you want to add a button onto a page, you have to write a code for that. But using Web IDE, what they have done is, you can drag and drop a button. You do not have to write a code. You can actually play around with the layout. You can just drag a button onto the page or put an input box onto the page. Just drag and drop it. You do not have to write a code for that.
Okay.
So as a developer, it basically simplifies your time. So these are some extra features that are, and also there is an advanced level of code completion algorithm written into SAP Web IDE. So but if you want to add a button, so just if you add B, onto your code, automatically it will give you a drop down that these are the different controls that are available with respect to B. Okay, so basically the code completion snippets are more readily available and more correctly written into the SAP Web IDE. But then it is available on at the cost of money. So I mean, you have to pay extra. There is around $66 per month, something around $66 that you have to pay for this using SAP Web IDE. And as the name suggests, SAP Web IDE, you do not have to locally install this. As Eclipse, you have to install or you have to copy. But Web IDE basically opens into your browser. So you just have to type the URL and the Eclipse, and I mean the IDE gets open. So it's a browser-based IDE. Is it clear, Parma?
Yes, Jigar.
Okay, that's good. Any questions, any point of time, please let me know, Parma.
Sure.
Okay. So this is something. Okay, Sudhindra, you have joined, I guess. Hello, Sudhindra. Sudhindra. Hello. He has joined. Okay. Just a minute.
He's pinging you, Jigar.
Okay.
Seems some problem with the mic.
I cannot see his message here.
He has messaged that I have joined, but there's some problem with the mic.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, he can hear me. Okay, that's perfect. So we can continue. No issues. Okay. Just a minute here, guys. I'm getting a call. Just a minute. Okay, so let's continue, guys. Okay, this was something related to SAP UI5. Now let's understand that what is basically the concept used, the most important concept used to develop the SAP UI5 application. I guess this particular concept called as MVC or the Model View Controller is pretty much also used by many of the important what we say programming languages like WebDriver App or WebDriver Java, AngularJS, jQuery Mobile, not jQuery Mobile, AngularJS, Backbone.js. Many of these important programming interfaces use this MVC. MVC is nothing but model view controller. So basically, you have this three important segregations of code. So there would be a view, a controller, and a model. So now, as the name suggests, I mean, as a developer, when you will write the code, I mean, there would be three different types of code that you will write. There might be a snippet of code that is related to the views. I mean, that is related to the end product that the user sees. I mean, it might be related to a button. Now, button is something which is related to the end product that the user sees. So this is something that will come under the view. Then there is something called as the data. I mean, there is a list in the views, and there is some data that is getting displayed on the list. Now, this data is actually coming from a model, because your model over here will consist the data. So your data, your actual data will reside inside the model. Your actual end product, your buttons, your input boxes, your list, your controls basically lie inside your views. So your data lies inside your model, your controls, the end user controls lies inside your views, and basically controller acts as a link which gets the data, fetches the data from the model and puts it inside the view, or uh, takes the user interactions from the views and perform the necessary transactions onto the model. This is what the controller does, and controller basically forms a link between the view and the model. The any doubts on this? The concept of controller, view, or model?
No, no, Jigar.
Perfect. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So the basic purpose of data binding in the UI is to separate the definition of the user interface, that is the view, the data visualized by the application, that is the model, and the code for the business logic for processing the data, that is the controller. So the separation that we have performed over here into the model, view, and controller, wherein model represents your data source, your views represents your controls, and your controller represents your business logic or your link between the model and the view. So the separation that we have performed over here has some advantages. First advantage is that it provides better readability, maintainability, and extensibility. And at the same time, it also allows one to change the view without touching the underlying business logic, and to define several views of the same data. So there might be one data source, but there might be 10 number of views which actually reside onto the same data. So in that case, you just have to write a snippet of code inside the model once, which will represent your data. So once you have represented your data, once you have written a snippet of code which actually maintains your data, then you can define 10 views, and these 10 views will actually consume data from the same model. So now, because of this segregation, you do not have to write the same code for maintaining the data 10 times. Just write the code one time to maintain the data, and this data source now, if the use case comes, can be used for multiple views. Views and controllers basically often form a 1:1 relationship. That is, if there is a view, there might be a controller associated with it. But it is also possible to have controllers without UI. So these particular type of controllers are called as application controllers, which do not have a view. It is also possible to create views without controllers. But from a technical position, a view is a SAP UI5 control, and it is always recommended to have a controller representing or corresponding to a particular view. So it is always recommended, and it is by default always taken care of, that the views and controllers are always maintained in 1:1 relationship. So that if you have a model, so the linking between the model and the view becomes quite simpler because of the 1:1 relationship. Hello, Ramana? Hello, Ramana, you can hear me?
Jigar, have you stopped sharing?
Yes, yes, just a minute.
Okay.
I'm just sharing it again. Okay. I guess even Ramana is not able to speak. Mic issue there might be. Okay, no problem. So yeah, we were about talking about MVC. So in MVC basically is used to segregate your entire coding paradigms. So as a developer, what happens? Suppose Arman has worked on a particular project for a particular period of time. So he has developed some particular snippet of code. Now what happens is, suppose if Arman leaves the organization and if now Sudhindra is working on this particular snippet of code. So as a developer, first what he needs to do is first he needs to understand what exactly the code and where exactly the code for a particular logic or for a particular view is written. So now as an SAP UI5 developer, if Arman has followed SAP UI5 principles while developing the code, it becomes quite simpler for Sudhindra to exactly locate a particular snippet of code for a particular issue or for a particular control. Because now when Sudhindra goes and looks into the code, he would very easily understand that if for this particular if there is an issue in the current project with respect to a view, with respect to some controls, you can just go into the views part of to the code and can just debug the view part. Or if Sudhindra understands there is some issue with the data source, so you can just go to the modeling part of the code and can just debug onto that part. So I mean, debugging, understanding of code, writing of code, maintaining of code, readability, everything becomes quite simpler by following the MVC pattern. As a result, MVC, if you use any of the SAP's technologies, I mean, web interface technology, let it be Web Improve App or Java, or I mean, even SAP UI5, all of these follow the concept of MVC, Model View Controller. Any doubts on this, guys?
No, Jigar.
Okay. Okay. So now what we would do is we would basically now talk about each of these three important components: the model, view, and controller. Now in SAP UI5, what they have done is in SAP UI5 there are different types of views available. There are different types of models available. So we'll discuss all of these, and also we'll discuss what is exactly controller's role, or what are the different functions that are present inside the controller that actually helps to perform better readability and usability. So first, let's discuss the different models which is present inside the SAP UI5. So now in SAP UI5, basically 4 important types of models are present, which can be used according to the use case or according to your what we say comfort. So I mean, as we know, models basically represent the data source. So the data source can actually be defined in any of these 4 modeling paradigms. It can be a JSON model, it can be an XML model, it can be a resource model, or it can be an OData model. So first let's understand what is a model. A model basically holds the data and provides method to retrieve the data from the database and to see and update data. So SAP UI5 basically provides the following predefined models. First is the JSON model. Now this JSON model can be used to bind controls to JavaScript object data, which is usually serialized in JSON format. So JSON model is nothing. We would define our data source inside this model, but the development paradigm, I mean the syntax that we are going to use to define our data source would be in JSON format. So in all of these, I mean, even in the XML model, when we will see the next models, the only difference between the XML model would be the syntax or the development code that we are going to use to define our data source or define a model would be in the XML form. So if you as a developer are more comfortable with JSON programming, so you can use JSON model. or you as a developer are more comfortable with XML coding, you can use the XML model. Both of these are client-side model. The JSON model is also client-side model and therefore intended for small data sets, which are completely available on the client. Now, when I say client-side model, it means the entire data will actually reside onto your mobile device or onto your target device. Basically, before moving ahead, we will discuss upon the two types of model that is provided in SAP UI5. Two larger type of models, the larger overview type of models. First is a client-side model and second is the server-side model. So when I talk about client-side model, JSON model, XML model, and resource model are your client-side model, and OData model is your server-side model. Now, what is a client-side model? The client-side model basically means that the model data is loaded completely and is available on the client devices. Operations such as sorting and filtering are executed on the client without further server request. That means what will happen is the complete data in a single fetch would be fetched from your server and would be stored onto your client models. And now subsequently, if you want to perform some filtering or sorting, it would be done onto the local client device data model only, because now you have the entire data onto your client device. So you do not have to go to the server or ping your server or ping your gateway server to get the data or get the filtered data or get the sorted data. The entire data in a single fetch would be copy pasted onto your client side model. But in the case of server side model, or the server will have the entire data, your client devices will not have the data. Your server, depending upon the request that the end user is putting, it will send only that particular data. So suppose if I have an application called as purchase order, and if I want to know all the different purchase orders that are available for a particular customer. So now in case of server side model, what will happen is your complete data would reside onto your server only. So I will just put a request to the server, and the model on the server would then give me the corresponding requested data only. But now in the case of client side model, it will also request server for the data, because ultimately the data will reside into the server only. But now what happens in the client side model is your entire data, irrespective of whatever you wanted a purchase order details only for a particular customer, but this will not happen. It will take the entire data from the server, the entire purchase order data for all the customers from the server, and copy paste it into the client models. And now as a user, if you want to see just a particular customer's data, the programming interface now will do the sorting and filtering onto the client side model, which has the complete data. This is what the major difference is. Guys, are you getting the point? Arman?
Yes, Jigar.
You're getting it?
So, yeah. So, I understand the difference between the client and server, but is there any logic that says that server-side modeling is better or client-side modeling? Or
yes, that's a very good question, Arman. Yes. Okay, I was coming into that. That's a very good question. Now, see, both of these techniques have their pros and cons. So, depending upon the client requirement or depending upon the use case, we have to select one. So, let's take an example. Now, there is a requirement from the client such that the application size, suppose you're creating an APK or an IPA of the application and you're uploading onto the Google Play Store or to the iOS Play Store. So the size of the application that is uploaded onto the Google Play Store or the Apple Play Store should be very less. This is the requirement from the client. It should be in KBs, or it should be in some 1 or 2 MBs. So in that case, it is recommended to go for the server side model. because in that case the load onto your client devices or the load onto the client applications reduces drastically. So in that case you can go for the client side model. The other requirement, you can go for the server side model and can neglect the client side model. The other importance of when you can use the server side model is that suppose the end devices that are actually targeted to run the application are very low profile devices, which has very less RAM and which has very low processing speed. So in that case, again, OData model is recommended, because when you use the client side model, the runtime memory that is used by the application is very heavy. I mean, is very heavy for that particular device, which is of low profile. So to reduce the runtime artifacts, or to reduce the runtime load onto the device, the developer can go for the OData model or for the server side model, basically to reduce the load dynamically onto the RAM performance or to the processing performance on the device. But then again, suppose if you want to make an offline application wherein the application should run without internet connection, so in that case client side model is recommended, because now we know that whenever the data is requested or whenever the data is required, our model, I mean our application will hit the server and will fetch the data from the server. But now if you want to make an offline application such that the entire data is available onto the client device, so in that case you have to go for the client side model. Or if you have the second requirement where you can go for the client side model is that suppose you have a server, I mean a gateway server wherein your entire data resides, but now this gateway server is pretty much already loaded, is not very fast, is pretty much already loaded, and you do not want to further increase the load onto the server. So in that case, again, you can go for the client side models. So I mean, it pretty much depends upon the requirement from the clients, the current landscape which is present on the client's architecture. So taking all these points into consideration, the developer has then to take a decision that whether he should go for the client side modeling or he should go for the server side model. Is it getting clear, Arman?
Yes, it's clear. And just last one thing, we hear a lot about OData service and everything. So it has anything to do with OData model or something?
Yes, that's perfect. Because now we know that OData services are basically hosted on gateway. So you can use OData model if you want to go for the server side, server side modeling approach, or you can also use the JSON model to consume the OData service. That's not an issue. I mean, you can also use JSON model or OData model to consume the OData service. But whenever there is a requirement for server side model, in that case, whatever might be the services, OData services or AJAX services or web services, OData model is the preferred one.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move to further slides. So yes, this was something related to the client side model and the server side model. So now the JSON model is a client side model, and basically JSON format is used to write the data source inside the JSON model. XML model is again a client side model and intended for small data sets which are completely available on the client. Again, the only difference between XML and JSON model is that the coding technique that you would use to write the data source must be in the XML format in case of XML model. Now, resource model is something different. Now, resource model is basically designed to handle data and resource bundles and mainly to provide text in different languages. So basically, resource model is used to provide runtime conversions or runtime translations into different languages. So you as a developer, what you would do is, suppose there is a button onto your screen called as login button. Now, there is a requirement from the client that this login button should be displayed to the client in different languages depending upon the customer who is using this particular application, depending upon the user who is using this particular application. So if the user is from Germany, login should be visible to the user in German language. Or if he is from Spain, it should be in Spanish language. Or if he is from India, it should be in Hindi. So I mean, all these runtime translations can be achieved using resource model. So what you would do is you would just define a login, particular English login metadata, and with respect to this English login metadata, you will define all the different languages variables in Spanish, in German, in Hindi, in Chinese, and Mandarin. So depending upon the end user who is requesting the who is watching the application, that particular thing might change. So this is with respect to the resource model. And the last but not the least is the OData model, which is a server-side model, and it enables binding of controls to data from OData services. So the OData model is a server-side model. The dataset is only available on the server, and the client only knows the current visible rows and fields. This also means that sorting and filtering on the client is not possible. For this, the client has to send a request to the server, and the server will do the sorting and filtering. Very important to note that OData model is the server-side model, and if you want to use the OData model, the server that can be used the server that can be used should be supporting OData service, because the OData model only supports OData services, and OData services are only hosted on SAP NetWeaver Gateway or SMP 3.0. So very important to note that as we know that OData model is a server-side model, so the server while using the OData model should be the capable of generating OData service. Then only you can use the OData model.
One question, Jigar. OData services are normally services when we click on any application. So the look and feel can be generated using UI5, but to get data from the server, OData services are needed, right?
Yes.
So is there a possibility that we don't have OData services in the Fiori?
I mean, you want to use another technique to get the data.
Yeah.
Yes, you can do that, but in that case, then you cannot use OData model. You have to use the JSON model, XML model, or the resource model.
Okay. So what are the services which JSON or XML or resource model use?
You can also use OData services, but if you do not want to use OData services, you can use SharePoint services, you can use REST services, you can use SOAP services, you can use AJAX call.
Okay.
These are the different techniques apart from OData service you can use to get the data from different types of servers.
Okay.
But then if you are using any other servers which is not supporting OData, then you cannot use OData model. Then you have to go for JSON model, XML model, or resource model.
Okay. So basically, OData has one compulsion that it can only use OData services, whereas JSON, XML, and resources can use any services.
Perfect. That's perfect. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. Ramana, you can hear me? I don't know. No one can hear. Oh, yes. Lost. It's not there now. Okay. So yes. Okay. So let's discuss the last point for today, the different types of views, and then we'll move on tomorrow ahead. So we'll discuss now the different types of models that are available in SAP UI5. So depending upon the programming language that you're comfortable with, if you're comfortable with XML, you can use XML model, or comfortable with JSON, you can use JSON model. So similarly, if you, as a developer, when you want to create a view, if you're more comfortable with XML, you can create an XML type of view. Or if you're more comfortable with JSON, you can create a JSON type of view. Similarly, JS or HTML type of view. So this is something that is available with SAP UI5. I mean, now what is a view? As we have already discussed, view is something that corresponds to your programmatic UI controls. So suppose you want to design a page which has three input boxes and a button. So now, as a developer, you will create a view and write this particular snippet of code inside the view of adding three input boxes and a button. Now, you as a developer are more comfortable with XML. I mean, with XML paradigm, with XML syntaxes. So what you can do is you can create an XML view and then write the same. Add the same input boxes and button by using XML syntax. Or if you're more comfortable with JSON, so you can you can add the input boxes and button in JSON formats. The concept and the button will look the same, the input boxes will look the same, but as a developer, you have the flexibility of using different development paradigms or different syntaxes to actually make your components. Normally, the views that is basically very highly used by developers is the JavaScript view. We'll discuss this, why JavaScript view is very heavily used and why it is a recommended one. Apart from JS view, even XML views are very heavily used because of its simplicity. So JS view and XML view are very heavily used. But nevertheless, if you're more comfortable with HTML or if you're more comfortable with JSON, you can also use this particular type of views to create your controls. So the above mentioned view types that we have seen are actually predefined and offered for selection as view options in the application creation wizard into the Eclipse. So if you use SAP UI5 application development tools, you can also plug in other view types. So I mean, when you try to create a different type of, when you try to create a view inside the Eclipse will first prompt you that what is the different, what is the type of view out of these four views that you would like to create. You would like to create an HTML view or JS view or JSON view or XML view. So you just need to select one development paradigm and automatically that particular view would be created for that. So is this clear? Arman? Sudhindra?
Yes, Jigar.
Okay. So tomorrow we would basically discuss controllers and the different browsers and the platforms supported and the different libraries that are present in SAP UI5. And then we'll also discuss in the later parts what is Eclipse and how to use Eclipse with respect to SAP UI5. So this is something very important, which will set up our IDE, and then we can go ahead and develop some SAP UI5 codes inside the Eclipse IDE.
So, Jigar, the SAP UI5 can be developed by using only two tools. One is Eclipse, another is SAP Web IDE, correct?
Perfect.
And UI5 is used to develop custom application, whereas Fiori is for the 300 applications produced by the SAP only.
Standard applications. Perfect. See, in Fiori there is no coding. Fiori is more of configurations, is more of administration, is more of what we say configuration, administration, and maintenance.
And is it more from the basis point of view?
Not exactly. Initially, yes, it is. It starts with basis, but once the basis work is done, the components are installed and deployed, then the administration work, the linking and the configuration that we need to do so that the application is visible onto the Fiori Launchpad, that is the work of the developer.
Okay. And just one more question, Jigar. We were supposed to do Fiori first and then UI5. So now we are doing UI5 from middle. So is there any prerequisite that we should be doing first the Fiori, complete that Fiori, and then UI5?
No. There is no prerequisite. See,
okay.
Initially both are different technologies. Fiori is different, UI5 is different. But now, in the end, both will merge. So what we would try to do is basically in our course, what we would try to do is we would first learn how to create an UI5 application. Okay. We will first learn how to create an UI5 application. So now in the later part, when we will develop a custom UI5 application, we have developed a custom UI5 application, that what we would do is we have a Fiori architecture in place. Okay. We have a Fiori Launchpad. In this Fiori Launchpad, there are some 3 to 4 standard apps which are visible to the user. Okay.
Okay.
Now what we would do is, we have developed this UI5 application, a custom UI5 application. Then what we would do is, we would link this custom UI5 application to the standard Fiori Launchpad, such that now the Fiori Launchpad will show us both type of applications. The standard Fiori applications that is developed by SAP people, and the custom application that is developed by us.
Okay.
So in the end, it will merge, but in the start, it is a completely different thing. There is no linking between both of these.
Okay.
Okay, so you do not have to worry about any prerequisites.
Okay.
Any more doubts, Arman?
No.
Okay. Okay. So we'll stop for the day today, and tomorrow same time at 9 o'clock we will meet. Okay. The
Yeah.
meeting, the